dive into my story where a simple, unexpected discovery at home spirals into a harrowing journey through illness, secrets, and betrayal. Witness my struggle to navigate the murky waters of trust and deception in my marriage. As we peel back layers of hidden truths, the question remains: what is the price of revenge? Can love truly heal deep wounds? Join me and uncover the reality that lies beneath the surface of a life you thought you knew. Watch now for a tale of heartbreak and redemption. Enjoy watching it. The morning sun was already casting long shadows across the pavement by the time I left the house. It was Wednesday, my usual day for juggling roles as a chauffeur, ATM, and chief problem solver for my teenage children. Traffic was as cooperative as a toddler in a tantrum, and as I navigated the congestion, the thought of the upcoming school pickup hung over me like a dark cloud. I arrived at Lincoln Middle School with time to spare, a small victory. The kids, Emma and Max, emerged from the sea of students looking every bit as enthusiastic as jurors on a long case. Max, with headphones firmly planted over his ears, barely acknowledged me, while Emma offered a tight-lipped smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Hey, Dad," she muttered as they piled into the car, her voice lost amidst the slamming doors and the click of seatbelts. "How was school?" I ventured, eyeing them in the rearview mirror. Max shrugged, the universal teenager's response, while Emma flicked a glance my way before returning to her phone. Conversation, it seemed, was not on the agenda today. As we pulled into the driveway at home, I noticed Lily's car parked outside. That was odd. She should have been at work, leading her team in designing yet another sleek, modern office space. Concern nibbled at my thoughts as we entered the house. "Is Mom home?" Emma's voice perked up with a mix of curiosity and concern. "Yeah, looks like it," I replied, trying to mask my confusion. "Let's go see what's up." We found Lily in the living room, curled up on the couch under a blanket despite the warmth of the day. Her face was pale, her eyes red-rimmed and weary. "Hey, love, what's wrong? Shouldn't you be at work?" I asked as I set my briefcase down with a thud, the sound echoing slightly in the quiet room. Lily looked up, managing a weak smile. "I came home early. Wasn't feeling great. My stomach is all over the place." Max, already halfway to the kitchen, called back, "Is it like the flu or something?" Lily's attempt to laugh ended in a cough. "I don't know, sweetie. Maybe." The worry lines deepened on my forehead as I approached her. "Why don't you go up to bed? I can look after things down here." She nodded slowly. "Might be a good idea. Oh, Mike, could you grab the sheets from the dryer? I had a bit of an accident earlier." "Of course," I said, keeping my voice steady despite the surge of concern. What was happening to her? As I headed towards the laundry room, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. This wasn't just a flu. It couldn't be. But the depth of my worry paled in comparison to the secrets that were about to come to light, secrets that would shake the very foundation of our family. The following weeks were a blur of doctor's visits and mounting confusion. Lily's condition fluctuated unpredictably. Some days she seemed almost her old self, vibrant and full of plans, while others saw her unable to leave bed, crippled by nausea and pain. Our home transformed into a makeshift clinic, with medications lining the bathroom shelves and medical pamphlets strewn across the coffee table. One chilly morning, as I prepared breakfast, trying to keep the routine as normal as possible for Emma and Max, Lily descended the stairs, gripping the handrail with one hand and her abdomen with the other. "Good morning," she managed, her voice weak but determined. "Morning, hun. How are you feeling today?" I asked, handing her a cup of ginger tea, which the latest internet remedies suggested could help. "Same old," Lily sighed, taking the cup with a small smile. "I'm beginning to forget what normal feels like." The kids were unusually quiet, picking at their food while casting worried glances at their mother. Max finally broke the silence. "Can't the doctors figure out what's wrong? You've been to like a million of them." Lily chuckled softly, the sound tinged with fatigue. "It feels that way, doesn't it? But no, they're still guessing. Another appointment today. Maybe this one will have the answer. But the appointment, like the ones before it, offered no answers. The specialist, Dr. Reynolds, was a gentleman in his 50s with a calm demeanor that seemed to momentarily ease Lily's anxiety. "Mrs. Thompson, we've run several tests and everything comes back normal. It's puzzling," Dr. Reynolds admitted as he flipped through her thick medical file. "We might need to consider some more specific tests, perhaps looking into autoimmune disorders, or even rare conditions." Lily, gripping my hand tightly, nodded. "Whatever it takes, doctor. I just want to feel better." As we left his office, the weight of uncertainty pressed down on us. The drive home was quiet, each of us lost in our thoughts. It was Lily who finally broke the silence. "Mike, what if they never figure it out? What if this is just how things are going to be?" Her voice was a mix of fear and resignation. I squeezed her hand, searching for words of comfort. "We'll get through this together. We won't stop until we find an answer. You're not alone in this, Lily." Back home, I watched her climb the stairs to our bedroom, each step slow and measured. The sight of her so vulnerable stirred a mix of emotions within me: compassion, frustration, and an undercurrent of helplessness. That night, as I lay beside her, listening to her shallow, uneven breaths, I felt the distance between us grow. It wasn't just the physical ailment that was taking its toll. The emotional strain was pulling at the threads of our relationship, threads that once seemed unbreakable. As I drifted into a restless sleep, the fear that we were only at the beginning of our ordeal loomed over me, a dark cloud in the midst of our storm. As the weeks turned into months with no clear diagnosis, the strain began to manifest not just in Lily's health, but in every facet of our life. Despite her illness, Lily continued to work from home when she could, struggling to maintain a semblance of normalcy. The stress was palpable, radiating from her as she sat at her makeshift office in the living room, surrounded by blueprints and fabric samples. One evening, as I was cleaning up after dinner, Lily shut her laptop with more force than necessary. "I can't do this, Mike. I just can't focus," she confessed, her voice breaking slightly. I dried my hands and sat next to her, trying to offer comfort. "Hey, it's okay. You don't have to push yourself so hard. The kids and I are fine. We can manage things while you get better." She shook her head, frustration etched on her face. "But that's just it. I'm not getting better. And every day I feel like I'm failing at everything. My job, being a mom, being a wife." "Lily, you're not failing. This illness, it's something we're facing together. You're the strongest person I know." I held her hand, feeling the tremors that she tried so hard to suppress. It was during one of our visits to yet another new specialist that the past crept back into our lives. As we sat in the waiting room, Lily's phone buzzed. Glancing at the screen, her face paled. It was an old message, one she thought she had deleted long ago, from Connor Evans. Seeing the change in her expression, I couldn't help but ask, "Something wrong?" Lily quickly turned off her phone and stuffed it in her purse. "It's nothing, just spam." Her voice was too casual, her smile forced. I wanted to believe her, but doubt seated itself in my mind. That night, as Lily slept fitfully, I lay awake, tormented by thoughts of Connor. I remembered the rumors from years ago, the whispers of an affair. I had dismissed them then, trusting my wife completely. But now, in the dead of night, suspicion gnawed at me relentlessly. The next morning I decided to confront her. I found her in the kitchen, nursing a cup of tea. "Lily, we need to talk about Connor Evans," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. Lily stiffened, her eyes widening slightly. "Why would we need to talk about Connor?" she asked, trying to keep her voice even. "Because I think there's more to what's happening with you than just a physical illness." "And I saw his message yesterday," I replied, watching her closely. Her shoulders slumped and she sighed deeply. "Mike, I was going to tell you. It was a long time ago. It meant nothing. I ended it because I realized how much I loved you and our family." Hearing her admission felt like a punch to the gut. And you kept this from me all these years? I was scared of losing you, of destroying what we have. I'm so sorry, Mike. I never wanted to hurt you, she pleaded, tears starting to form in her eyes. The revelation created a chasm between us that day, one filled with past lies and present truths. As I looked at Lily, pale and remorseful, a part of me wanted to bridge that gap, to forgive and move forward. But another part recoiled, wounded and betrayed, unsure if the foundation of our marriage could ever be the same again. The weeks following Lily's confession were among the darkest of our marriage. The air in our home grew thick with unspoken words and unresolved feelings. The trust that once bound us had frayed, and in its place, suspicion and resentment began to fester. One rainy evening, I sat alone in the dim light of our living room, replaying the past years in my mind. Each memory of happiness now tainted with doubt, every loving gesture overshadowed by the shadow of betrayal. It was during these hours of solitude that the seed of revenge planted itself in my thoughts. A few days later, Lily approached me in the kitchen, her demeanor hesitant. "Mike, can we talk? I feel like there's so much between us now." "And I hate it," she said, her voice a mix of hope and fear. I continued to organize the spice rack, not meeting her eyes. "What's there to talk about, Lily? You made your choices and here we are," I replied, my voice cold. Lily's hands clenched at her sides. "I know I made a terrible mistake and I'm sorry, but I'm still the same person who loves you. Can we try to get past this? For us? For the kids?" Her plea hung in the air, heavy with desperation. I turned to look at her, the pain evident in her eyes. Part of me yearned to forgive her, to end our mutual suffering. But another part, the wounded part, couldn't let go. "It's not that simple," I said finally, turning away. The idea of revenge, once a fleeting shadow, now took a solid form. The plan was simple, yet diabolical. I started researching online, late at night when the house was silent. My searches led me to obscure medical forums, toxicology reports, and eventually to a concoction that was undetectable yet effective. It would mimic the symptoms of a severe gastrointestinal disorder. Purchasing the necessary chemicals under the guise of a new hobby in gardening, I meticulously calculated the required dosages. I began to spike Lily's morning coffee, initially in small doses. The effects were gradual but noticeable. Each sip she took deepened my sense of control, a dark satisfaction growing in the pit of my stomach. One evening, as I prepared another dose, Lily walked into the kitchen. "What are you up to?" she asked, eyeing the vials on the counter. "Just a bit of gardening stuff, trying to get rid of pests," I replied, forcing a smile. She nodded, seemingly satisfied with the explanation, and left the kitchen. As her footsteps receded, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of guilt, quickly suppressed by recalling her betrayal. Weeks passed, and Lily's condition worsened. Her doctors were baffled, her body a mystery they couldn't solve. With each hospital visit, each test that came back inconclusive, my resolve strengthened. Late one night, Lily, looking frail and exhausted, found me in the living room. "Mike, I'm scared," she whispered, sinking into the couch beside me. "What if they never find out what's wrong? What if I'm dying?" Her voice broke on the last word, a sob caught in her throat. I reached out, touching her hand lightly, feeling her tremble under my touch. "We'll figure this out, Lily. I promise," I said, my voice soft, belying the turmoil inside me. As she leaned into me, seeking comfort, I felt a hollow victory. My plan was working, but at what cost? The line between justice and vengeance had blurred, leaving me in a moral limbo from which there seemed no escape. The facade of a concerned husband became increasingly difficult to maintain as Lily's health deteriorated further. Days melded into nights filled with hospital visits and endless tests, each yielding no clues to her condition. As I watched her suffer, guilt gnawed at me relentlessly, though I masked it with a veneer of support and care. One particularly tough evening after another fruitless visit to the hospital, Lily sat at our dining table, surrounded by piles of medical bills and test results. Her hands trembled slightly as she tried to organize the paperwork, a visible sign of her weakening state. "Mike, look at all this," she said, her voice weary. "We're drowning in medical debt, and for what? They still don't know what's wrong with me. It feels like I'm fading away and nobody can tell me why." I sat across from her, the weight of my actions heavier than ever. "We'll find an answer, Lily. There's got to be something they've missed. We just have to keep looking," I reassured her, my heart sinking with each hollow word. Lily looked up, her eyes searching mine for the solace they once found so easily. "I need you, Mike. Now more than ever. Please don't give up on me, even if it seems hopeless." Her plea tore at me, and in a moment of weakness, I wanted to confess everything. But fear of losing her, fear of the consequences, kept me silent. "I won't give up. We'll get through this together," I said instead, squeezing her hand, hating the deceit that lay between us. As weeks turned into months, the strain began to show not just in Lily's health, but in every aspect of our lives. Our children, Emma and Max, grew more distant, sensing the tension that constantly simmered beneath the surface of our familial facade. One afternoon, I picked Emma up from a friend's house, and she asked a question that caught me off guard. "Dad, is Mom really going to get better? You keep saying she will, but she just seems to get worse." Her directness stung, a reminder of the reality I was trying to shield her from. "Doctors are doing their best, Emma. It's complicated, but we have to stay hopeful," I replied, avoiding her gaze. "But what if she doesn't?" Emma pressed, her voice tinged with fear and frustration. "We have to believe she will. That's all we can do," I said, the lie tasting bitter in my mouth. One evening, as I prepared another of Lily's doses, I reflected on the tangled web I had woven. It started as a means of control, a way to make her pay for her past transgressions. But now it had spiraled into a daily torment, a reminder of the darkness within me. Lily entered the kitchen quietly, her footsteps softer than usual. "Can't sleep?" I asked, quickly hiding the vial behind a stack of cookbooks. "No, too many thoughts," she replied, leaning against the kitchen counter. "Sometimes I wonder if there's something we're missing, something right under our noses." Her words, unintendedly ironic, hit me like a physical blow. "Maybe," I said, keeping my back to her, "but we've looked into everything, haven't we?" "Yeah, I suppose," Lily sighed, her voice laced with resignation. As she turned to leave the kitchen, she paused and looked back at me. "Mike, whatever happens, I want you to know I appreciate everything you've done for me. I couldn't have faced this without you." Her gratitude, sincere and undeserved, filled me with a profound sadness. "You'd do the same for me," I managed to say, feeling the full weight of my betrayal. That night, as I lay beside a sleeping Lily, the silence of our room was a stark contrast to the chaos of my thoughts. The lies I lived with were suffocating, and as I watched her breathe softly, oblivious to my deceit, I wondered how much longer I could bear the burden of my own actions. The fragile facade I had maintained began to crack as the pressure of my own conscience bore down on me. As the months dragged on, Lily's condition showed no signs of improvement, and the guilt of my actions grew heavier with each passing day. Our home, once a sanctuary of love and laughter, had transformed into a silent battleground of my own making. One crisp morning, as autumn leaves danced in the wind outside, Lily confronted me in the living room, her eyes filled with a mix of confusion and desperation. "Mike, we've been to every specialist, taken every test, tried every treatment. Why am I not getting better? It feels like I'm trapped in my own body." Her voice trembled, and I could see the strain of the months etched deeply in her face. I moved to sit next to her, my heart pounding with fear and regret. "Lily, I wish I knew," I lied, taking her hand. "Maybe it's something environmental, Or maybe it's just incredibly complex. Lily sighed, leaning her head against my shoulder. I just want my life back, Mike. I want our life back. The intimacy of the moment, once a common comfort, now felt like a sharp reprimand. As she leaned on me, seeking comfort, I felt unworthy, tainted by the secrets I kept. A few days later, our situation took a dramatic turn. I received a call from Emma's school counselor, urging me to come in for a discussion about Emma's recent behavior and plummeting grades. Concerned and distracted, I left the vial I'd been using out in plain sight, a mistake that would soon unravel everything. Upon returning home after the meeting, I found Lily standing in the kitchen, the vial in her hand, her expression a mixture of confusion and horror. "Mike, what is this?" she asked, her voice shaking. "I found it on the counter. The label. It's some kind of chemical. Why do we have this?" The room spun as I realized what had happened. My carefully constructed lies were about to collapse. "Lily, it's for the garden." "Pests," I stammered, the lie tasting more bitter than ever. Lily's eyes narrowed, her analytical mind piecing together the inconsistencies of my story. "Pests? Mike, this doesn't make sense. This is serious stuff, not something you'd leave out. What are you not telling me?" Her accusation hung in the air between us, a palpable force. I felt cornered, exposed, and with every passing second, the urge to confess grew stronger. "Lily, I need to explain. It's not what you think," I began, my voice faltering. Before I could continue, Lily's face hardened. "No, Mike, I need the truth, now." The truth spilled out then, messy and painful. I confessed everything. The poisoning, my twisted sense of justice, my revenge for her past betrayal. With each word, I watched the woman I loved crumble. Lily recoiled, her face a mask of shock and hurt. "How could you?" she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. "How could you do this to me, to us?" I had no defense, no justification that could soften the blow of my betrayal. I thought I was doing the right thing, but I was wrong. So wrong, I admitted, my own tears mingling with hers. The unraveling of our life together was complete in that moment. Lily, devastated by my betrayal, moved out the next day to stay with her sister. I was left alone, the silence of the house a stark testament to the destruction my actions had wrought. As I sat amidst the ruins of our marriage, the weight of my guilt was a crushing force. I had not only poisoned my wife, but I had also poisoned everything we had built together. The road to redemption seemed impossibly long and uncertain, and as I pondered my next steps, the reality of my isolation was overwhelming. In the days following Lily's departure, the emptiness of our home echoed the hollow feeling inside me. The enormity of what I had done, poisoning the woman I loved out of a misguided sense of retribution, weighed heavily on my soul. The silence was suffocating, filled only with the echo of my regrets and the ticking of the clock, marking the passage of time and the deepening of my solitude. My phone rang late one evening, shattering the quiet. It was Lily. Her voice was calm but distant, a stark contrast to the warmth it once carried. "Mike, we need to talk. Can we meet at the park tomorrow? Neutral ground," she suggested. "Of course, Lily. Whatever you need," I replied, my voice strained with the hope of reconciliation, however slight. The next day was overcast, with a brisk wind that seemed to mirror the turmoil within me. We met under the old oak tree where we once picnicked with the kids in happier times. Lily was there, wrapped tightly in her coat, her posture guarded. "Mike, why did you do it? Why didn't you just confront me about your feelings?" Her first words cut straight to the heart of the matter, her eyes searching mine for an answer. I took a deep breath, the cold air biting at my lungs. I thought I was protecting myself, protecting our family from more hurt, but I see now how twisted my reasoning was. I was hurt, and I acted out of pain and anger. "I'm so sorry, Lily. Truly, I am." Lily listened, her face unreadable. "You let me think I was dying. Do you understand the terror I felt every day, not knowing what was wrong with me? I trusted you, Mike. How do we come back from this? Her question hung heavy between us. I don't know if we can, I admitted, the reality painful to voice. But I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Counseling, therapy, anything. Lily nodded slowly, her decision palpable in the crisp air. I need time, Mike. Time to heal and think about all this. What you did? It's going to take a lot to move past it. I understand, I replied, the finality of our situation settling in. I'm here, whenever you're ready to talk. We stood in silence for a few moments, the gap between us wider than the physical space. Finally, Lily spoke, her voice softer. I'll reach out when I'm ready. For now, let's just take it one day at a time. As she walked away, her figure becoming smaller in the distance, the reality of what I had lost truly hit home. I had broken the trust of the person who meant the most to me, and the path to redemption was uncertain. In the weeks that followed, I attended therapy sessions, grappling with my own demons and learning to cope with the immense guilt. The sessions were tough, each one a deep dive into my psyche, unearthing the insecurities and pain that had driven me to such a dark place. One evening, after a particularly intense session, I decided to journal my thoughts and feelings, a suggestion from my therapist. As I wrote, the words flowed like a river, each one a step towards understanding and, hopefully, forgiveness. I wrote about my fears, my anger, and my profound sorrow for the hurt I had caused. I wrote about my hope for Lily's forgiveness and the dream that one day we might find a way to rebuild, even if not as a couple, then at least as friends. This journal became my confessional, a place where I could lay bare the truth of my actions and confront the reality of their consequences. It was a small step, but a vital one on the long road to healing and perhaps redemption. The months following my confessions were filled with profound introspection and therapy sessions that often left me emotionally drained but clearer in mind. I began to understand the depths of my actions and the pain I had inflicted not just on Lily, but on our entire family. Each session, each moment alone, was a step through my past, untying the knots of my decisions, unraveling the why behind my most destructive choices. It was a cold December morning when I decided to visit the cemetery where my father was buried. I hadn't been there in years, always finding excuses, too caught up in the day-to-day, or perhaps too afraid to face another part of my past. But today, I needed to talk to him, to share the burden that had come to define my recent life. As I stood before his gravestone, the reality of speaking to the cold marble hit hard. Dad, I've made some terrible choices, I began, my breath visible in the frosty air. I hurt the people I love because I couldn't handle my own pain. I know you had your own demons, but I wish you could have helped me understand mine. The silence of the cemetery enveloped me, offering no answers, just the space to voice my regrets. I'm trying to fix things, Dad. I'm trying to be better than the hurt I've caused. Returning home, I found a letter from Lily. She wrote about her time in therapy, about the healing process, and how it was slowly helping her make sense of everything. She also expressed a cautious desire to start conversational meetings with me, mediated by our therapists. It was a glimmer of hope, a testament to her incredible strength and grace. A few days later, we sat across from each other in the quiet, neutral space of a therapist's office. Mike, I've been doing a lot of thinking, Lily started, her voice steady but gentle. And I've realized that healing is not just about dealing with the pain, but understanding the why behind it. I know, I replied, nodding, and I've been working on that, trying to understand myself better to make sure I never make the same mistakes again. Lily paused, taking a measured breath. I appreciate your efforts, Mike, and I'm here today because I believe in the process of healing. But we need to rebuild trust, and it's going to take time. I understand, and I'm ready to give it all the time it needs, I said, feeling a mix of relief and immense responsibility. As the session ended, we agreed to continue these meetings, to slowly bridge the gap that my actions had created. Walking out into the cool air, I felt a cautious optimism for the first time in many months. In the solitude of the following weeks, as the holiday season cast a festive glow over the stark winter landscape, I spent many evenings looking back over the year. The journal I had kept became a narrative of my transformation, filled with raw admissions and hopeful reflections. One evening, by the light of the Christmas tree, I added another entry. This year has been one of the hardest of my life, but it has also been the most revealing. I've learned about the destructive power of unresolved pain, about the depths of my own heart, and the possibility of redemption. I wrote about Lily and her incredible resilience, about my hopes for us, whatever form that might take. Whatever happens, I am grateful for the chance to make things right, to move forward with honesty and humility. As the year drew to a close, I understood that the journey I was on wasn't just about making amends with Lily or reconnecting with my children. It was also about reconciling with myself, about learning to forgive myself for my mistakes and to grow beyond them. Reflections and regrets had defined much of my year, but as I looked forward to the new year, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. The path to healing was long and uncertain, but for the first time, it felt hopeful. As I closed my journal, I whispered a promise into the quiet night, a promise to continue seeking forgiveness, understanding, and, most importantly, a chance to start anew. Hey listeners, if you enjoyed this video and want to stay up to date with our latest content, be sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications. You definitely won't want to miss what's coming up next. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video with sweet cheating stories.